Hi everybody, Krista here with Inky Fairy Designs with another Watercolor Wednesday video for you featuring the Greeting Farm and the Frou collection. Today we're working with Frou Royal and I'm doing a no line watercoloring or just no line coloring using watercolors. So I'm going to be using the Peerless Watercolors, the Distress Ink and Antique Linen, and my Misty tool because one of the reasons that I finally broke down and bought the Misty tool is so that I could stamp in the face after I'm done doing all of that fun no line coloring. So I line up my stamp, I put it on the Misty, and I'm going to ink up the Distress Ink and Antique Linen. This is going to provide me my super light lines to give us that no line coloring painted look. And I'm going to leave my stamp on the Misty tool. That's important. Leave your stamp exactly where it is and just set it aside. I'm using the Peerless Watercolors today. This is my palette. You can see I love my Peerless Watercolors. There's some that I had to actually replace my little 1-inch square in the palette before I started, and then I also had to replace that black right there, that 55, later in the video because it's completely used up. So I start with pulling out some colors that I think are skin tones, so some of the lighter browns, and I drop in my plain water because you know me, I like to do the wet on wet watercolor technique and let that water do all of the blending for me. And then I'm just going to pick up some of that color and let it put it on the image and let it blend. And you can see already that the lines are starting to disappear, and that can be a little bit intimidating and a little bit scary, but just remember my motto, just keep coloring. Just keep adding your color. It will all turn out fine, I promise. You know, when you're doing the no line watercoloring, you might have to work a little bit slower, and of course, I do not watercolor this fast. If I made you sit and watch an entire video real time of me coloring, whether I'm using watercolors or Copics, you would be bored out of your mind. I take such a long time to color, and it's because I love it, and it allows me to kind of quiet my mind and just think about what is happening on the paper in front of me. And I don't really try to do it quickly. I just do it until I am happy with the final effect. Like once I'm done, I know I'm done and I'm happy. And there are times when in the middle it's a hot mess and I get a little bit worried. But yeah, just keep coloring and get into the zone and let yourself enjoy whatever medium is in front of you. So I love these Peerless watercolors, as you can tell from my very well-loved palette. They have some really vibrant, beautiful colors. They layer on top of each other like butter. I mean, you can layer different colors. Here I'm just sticking with one purple shade for each of her ruffles, and you can see how much intensity you can create just by adding more pigment, and how you can blend it out to a really light color just by adding more water. So I absolutely love these. I have had them for about a year, so I've had a lot of time to play with them, and definitely was something that I'm glad I ended up getting. It was one of those things that I had seen them around and I thought, are they really as cool as everybody is making them look out to be? Because sometimes, you get something and it's just not as cool as you thought it was going to be. But these definitely were, and I wouldn't tell you that if they weren't, if I didn't absolutely love it. Anything that I share with you is something that I love and use personally, and I will definitely tell you honestly what I think about it. So I'm just going to finish her dress. I ended up just doing purples for her ruffles. Like I had 4 different purples in my palette. And then this came from like the Pretty and Pink collection. This little, it's kind of like a reddish purple, and I thought it would kind of tie everything in. And I realized I forgot to color her neck, so I'm going to add that in right now. Oh, and the brushes I wanted to mention, I'm using the Silver Black Velvet 3000S round brushes. I'm using the number 4 and the number 2. Some of the spots in this image are pretty narrow, so the number 2 was a really good size. I probably would have preferred to use maybe a 1 or a 0, but I just don't have that size in my collection. And I'm going to add some shading because I want it to kind of look a little bit white. It ends up looking gray, but I like it anyway. And I want to show you here how these colors blend on top of each other, because I'm using that black on top of that blue, and you can see how it just really, they're kind of transparent. That's what I'm looking for. They're transparent, so you can still see the color of the blue underneath when I add that black. And then I love kind of just tapping it around and giving that texture for the ruffles area. So now I'm going to do the flowers in her hair. I think I'm doing the same color as, well, I am doing the same color as one of the ruffles, but I don't remember which one. The first flower I completely messed up on because I was trying to use that number 4 brush, and then for the second flower I realized I should really try to use that smaller brush, so I brought in the number 2, and that helped me, and I was able to get more of some variation in the color. The other flower is just kind of flat. So I'm bringing in some red for the hearts, and I wanted to show you here again, I am coloring right on top of that purple, but because of these Peerless Watercolors, you can still see that it's red. It's a much deeper red because we have that purple showing underneath. But it's still red, and I was able to bring those hearts back out because I colored right on top of them, because you can, you know, earlier in the video, I tried to go around them, but then I was just like, whatever, I'm just gonna color over it and I can bring them in. I thought I would use maybe a white gel pen, but then when I started coloring with the red on her hearts, I thought, oh, let's just try and put this red on top of that purple, and it worked out really nice. So now I am coloring her hair using one of the yellows and one of the kind of yellow oranges to give her some dimension in that hair. And then I wanted to leave this part in. I did mess up. I brought in some brown. I thought I would add some more texture, but it was so brown and I didn't like it at all. So I added some water. I tried to dab it up with my paper towel, and it came up quite a bit. But then I just added that yellow red on top, and it's fine. I was not going to start over. I tend to just work with what happens, and in the end I thought it kind of looked like a shadow, like that flower in her hair was casting a shadow, and I was like, oh yeah, I meant to do that, but I didn't. Now you know the truth behind that. So I'm just going to finish coloring her pigtails, and I kept it very simple with this coloring. Like I said, one of the things that I love about watercolors is how loose and free you can be with it. So I don't try to add a whole lot of detail with it because I am letting the water do most of the blending for me. So I just added a little bit of shading on the outside edges and brought that into the middle and left it. I think it looks great. So here's another mistake. My brush was red. My brush was dirty, and I thought I had washed it off, but I didn't. Anyway, like I said, I was not going to start over again. I was just, you know, or at all. So I worked with it, and I pulled out these shimmery, they're like pearlescent watercolors, and I thought they would look good on the crown to give a little bit of shimmer. I actually used a combination of the gold and a copper, and you didn't think this was actually going to be done if I didn't use Wink of Stella Clear, right? So I'm adding it to the hearts and also to the ruffle on the bottom. I just love how that ruffle came out. I think out of the whole image, that's my favorite part. And then I also added some white details using a white gel pen. So I added the polka dots back in and the stripes. So here's a little bit of a close-up before I added that white detail. My camera actually died and I wasn't able to finish filming that part. Now I'm going to show you how I use the Misty to bring back her face. So like I said, I did not move the stamp. I kept the stamp exactly where it was when I originally stamped this image. I'm going to put my paper back in the Misty exactly where it was, and that's where these magnets come extremely handy because the paper is kind of warped from all of that medium. And but I was able to put it flat and kind of tuck it in the corner. And now I'm going to mask off her face, I'm using the Versafine Onyx Black ink, and I'm using a bunch of torn up Post-its, and I'm just masking off around her face. I only want to stamp her eyebrows, her eyes, and her mouth. And so everything else I am covering with that Post-it note paper. And then I can, and it's kind of tedious, but it's better than having to wipe it off with a baby wipe, which is something you could do too, but I was too afraid that there would be slight residue and it would still show on the image. So this was what I came up with. And so once I stamp it, ink it up, I remove all of those Post-its, which is something that you want to remember, otherwise you're going to get all of that ink all over your pretty colored image. And now I'm going to stamp right on top, and I swear this is magic. And this, hands down, this is like the reason I bought the Misty, and I'm so happy that it worked the way that I thought. So now I have her face perfectly drawn in as originally on the stamp, and I'm just coloring in her eyes because they're open, so you can add whatever color you want. And I also added a pupil and some white highlights just to bring them to life. And that's it. That finishes my no-line coloring. I'm so excited. The Misty worked exactly as I imagined. If you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Share with your crafty friends if you think they would enjoy it. Check out the greeting farm for this image and other adorable images that are so fun to color, and my blog. And I will see you next week for another Watercolor Wednesday video. Bye.